everybody. So great to see you all, and I know most of you have been to these workshops in the past, and I think Gary, you've probably done the finance one before. Phil, this is your first one, and this one. So Roger, I think this is your first at finance. So it's it's probably the meatier one of the 6 that we do. So just to remind you, this is our series of 6 workshops that we do around what I would say the fundamentals of of any business. You need to be really aware of these, if not master them, to be able to sort of take the business forwards. And even a lot of what I do is aimed at the sort of the business owner and senior execs. I know some of you guys are part of the team, but I still think they are really important for you to understand how the business works as a whole, and then you can apply it to your particular area within the business as well. So I always start these workshops with my little formula for life success. So if we want to be successful in anything, then we've got to really know what we want to have, know who we need to be, our attitude, knowledge and skills, and really have clarity around our plan and our action of where we want to get to. So when it comes to finance mastery, and finance within the business, but I would also say relate some of this to your personal lives as well, guys, because money makes the world go round. There's lots of things to be said about money, but it won't necessarily make you happy, but the lack of it certainly does make you sad. So it is about personally as well, but I'm going to focus obviously from a business point of view, but it equally works out on a personal level. So who do I need to be? What do I need to do? What do I want to have? So out of all of these 3, the most important of all 3, Gary, is which one?
Is it have?
It is the have. Well done. That's
if you don't have the dreams or goals, you've got nothing to aim at.
Exactly. Okay. So we've got to understand what is it that we want to have.
Between the 3 of us, we'll get it all sorted.
Is that you, Gresh? Cool. I might put you on mute.
Either Ellis or me, yeah.
I'm going to put you on mute, Gresh, so we don't get the background noise there. So we want to really be clear what we want to have. So really, even out of today's session, what I'd like you to actually just put on the chat box. So if you can find your chat box, I'll just start it there. Okay. So just type in the chat box, what is it that you'd like to get out of today's session? So what is it about finance, about, that part of the, how it relates to your role? Is there a particular question you want me to answer today? What is it around finance within the business side that I can help you best with at the moment? So just whatever comes to mind, just jot something down, and then I know everyone's actually sort of able to type as well, which helps. KPIs, good. Thanks, Gary. I'm just we do a book club every month, so this is, I don't know if you've got into this one, Gary. This is next month's or this month's book club, and I've just got to the chapter on there where he just says numbers are so important, and you've got to measure everything and you make your decisions from those numbers. So it's always nice to hear when it's written by somebody else as well. Okay, good. Anyone else? The P&L, good. So on the profit and loss, so I'll be dealing a little bit on that and giving you a bit more clarity around what it's about. Gresh, Andy, what about from your perspectives? Okay, setting prices. Yep. I think Andy was talking about that as well, about how do we price jobs up? what we need to think about. So what I'll probably do then, I might tweak this a little bit to bring in the quotings. I know, Phil, we've done quite a bit on that as well in the past, so that'll be relevant to you. Cool. Which is a very slow typer by the looks of it. It's like, is it one finger at a time? Okay. So I think we can certainly sort of cover those things. So when we come to finance, and I think the key thing I want you to really understand within this is that numbers are the scorecard of business. Okay, the financial statements are the ultimate scorecard of how a business is doing. So if we akin a business to be in a game, and I love my golf, so I would use golf as a bit of an analogy. I know when I go out and play golf, that the score that I have at the end of a round is a true reflection of how I've done that day. Is that score that I post playing golf a true reflection of the golf I'm going to play tomorrow? Is it a true reflection of the golf I played 3 weeks ago? No. Okay. It is just a reflection of what's actually happened back then. Now, I can sit there and I can whinge and moan about it. I can get upset about it. I can throw my toys out the pram. But can I do anything after the event about the score I've just posted? No. Okay. So this is what we've really got to understand within finance. They are just a measure of what's happened. Okay. They don't define who I am. Yeah. They're not. It's not sort of saying this is who you are, this is what you need to be. All they are is a reflection of past behaviors and a way then to make decisions for the future. Okay. So the first thing that really can get in people's way within business finance is their beliefs. Okay. Is what beliefs do I have around money? Okay. Around money and finance. Okay, because when it comes down to the profit of a business or the money or the sales or whatever it is, that number, what happens is there becomes an emotion that's attached to it. Okay, so money is a far more emotional loaded topic than most people realize. Your feelings and how you relate to money can affect your decisions and your financial success. So just I want you to imagine. Phil, I'm going to pick on you. So do you want to take yourself off mute a sec?
Yep.
Okay. So you're down to your last 100 quid in the world.
Yep.
Okay. That's all you've got. And the only way forward you can see with this 100 quid is to go down the local casino. Yeah. And bet it on red.
Yep.
Yeah. How are you feeling about this 100 quid at the moment?
How are you feeling? Well, obviously, you're in the last chance saloon, aren't you, at this particular point? So you're feeling that there'll be the part of you going, should I do this or should I try and work with 100 that I've got? So you're going to have that niggling little blooming shot, something on your shoulder, deciding what to do with it. It's how lucky do you think you feel?
How lucky are you today, punk?
Yeah.
So
based on your golf analogy, that won't be particularly good if you're not playing well.
So so that 100 quid, is 100 quid, but you've now created an emotion around that £100 because it's your last 100 quid. Now imagine that you're the richest man in the world, okay, and you're just on the way home and you decide to pop into the casino and you just happen to have 100 quid of loose change in your pocket, and you go and decide to put it on black or red.
You've got no emotion at that point because you don't need it. It's it's irrelevant. That which circumstances are different. Obviously, the two cases that you put out, but in reality they're the same.
Relatively the same. So have you got the same chance of winning in either case?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
So what we've got to understand is at any stage when you start looking at money, there will be an emotion that kicks in. Okay, and understanding what that emotion is and why it's there is one of your first key things around finance mastery. Okay, and what we've got to do is we've got to treat every number yeah, whatever it is, with an equal level of emotion as another number. Because, you know, again, when we're looking at the finances, they are just a reflection of the past. So they have no emotion. They're not alive. You know, it's just a snapshot of what's actually happened. So what I want you to think about is, what are some negative beliefs that you might have around money? So just type them in the chat box. So when I say, you know, give me some words or phrases that describe money in your mind, things from your past, what your parents have said, what friends said about money. Good or bad? Okay, I'll be happy when I've made enough. Excellent. That's a good one. Money does not bring you happiness. There's a nice contradiction to your one then, Gary. Money comes and goes. Yeah, easy come, easy go. Money makes money. There's a nice positive one there. What else have we got? Roger's typing his memoirs. Okay, give me neither poverty. I told you he was writing his memoirs. So we can't help but have these emotions that come out. So Gary's done like root of all evil. Okay, love of money, that's root of all evil. So money has, I say, it's a benign object. Okay, it only has emotion when we give it emotion. Yeah, and when we give it our beliefs around it. So either we have a positive belief, which is helping us to move forwards, or we have a negative belief, which is holding us back. So what the first thing we've got to do is, when we start looking at the numbers in our own lives, but say when I come back to the business side of things, if we start looking at those numbers with a negative belief, yeah, then we need to question them, yeah, and actually say, okay, so if that's my negative, why am I getting that negative belief? Do I need to replace it with a positive one? Okay, so what can happen in a small business is, you know, when we're looking at, you know, if you think about most business owners, you know, and their profit and loss account, do you think that they have a tendency to actually share that information or keep it to themselves?
They might share it when it's going badly, but they'll keep it to themselves when it's going well.
Or the other way around, Phil.
Yeah.
When it's going well, I'll probably keep it to myself, or I'll share it when it's, you know, not bad, when it's bad. So yeah, so sometimes, because the owners and the people at the top, yeah, sometimes can't help but put emotion on those numbers as well. Yeah, and we can look at a set of numbers and say, oh, look, you know, that the company's doing really well, and therefore, if the company's doing well, then I need to do well. Okay, so I want a piece of that. So these things can be good and they can move us forwards, or they can be negative and hold us back. Because when we come to our emotions, yeah, our thoughts drive our feelings, drive our behaviors. So if I have a negative thought about money, yeah, if I have a negative thought about the numbers I'm looking at, I can't do anything to create a negative feeling about that. And if that negative feeling stays there, then that will drive a negative behavior. So if I look at a set of numbers and I say, oh my God, those numbers are really bad. Yeah, oh dear, you know, what am I going to do about it? That's going to make me feel really bad, and potentially might drive me down some negative behaviors. I can't do anything about it, therefore why bother? Okay, likewise, they could be really good and I could be really happy, and it could incentivize me to do more, or it could actually say, well, everything's really good. I've hit my target 3 days into the month, and therefore I'll stop. So what we've got to look at is, if I've got a feeling, whether it's good or bad, I need to question that and say, right, okay, is that giving me a positive feeling, and is it driving a positive behavior? And there was a little study somebody did with black cab drivers in London. Okay, so he went through a bit of a survey and looked at all the, interviewed a number of, well, I say interviewed number, but he sat in the back of a black cab, and his question was, how is business today? Okay, and generally, you know, the cab driver will either say it's really good or it's been terrible. Okay, cab drivers never sort of sit on the fence, so it's been really good. Yeah, and when they say it's been really good, yeah, what are they generally going to do? So they've got a good feeling, it's been really good. Yeah, I feel good. What behavior does that drive? Imagine you're driving a black cab, you've made some good money, that, you know, it's sort of midday, you've made some good money in the morning. What behavior does that drive?
Happiness, chatty, chirpy guy.
What behavior? What's he likely to do?
Speeding. I don't know.
No, he's likely to feel more relaxed and because he's a comfort, because he's made the money. Yeah.
So
he'll drive safely. He'll be chatty and friendly with customers. He won't get miserable if he's not at a tip. He will all that sort of thing. He might even round down the fare a little bit and generally feel quite sort of relaxed.
That would be nice to think, Roger, but that's very unlike taxi drivers. What he found was they got to about midday. They'd done really well. They'd made some money, and they said, "I'm knocking off early today." Okay. When he found them on a bad day, yeah, and they were a bit fed up, they were feeling a bit crap because it hasn't been a good day. What behavior did that drive?
Bit miserable because they think they've got to work longer to sort of make up the money that they like the target for the day.
Yeah.
Bit desperate because he'll take anything. He'll do a fare just to make ends meet, type of thing.
So you basically would stay out longer.
Yeah.
So when the market's crap, yeah, he stays out there waiting for the market to get better, which it doesn't. You know, if it's a bad day, it's a bad day. When the market's good, yeah, he buggers off early. If he actually just said, I'm going to stay here, you know, I'm going to do my hours, irrespective of whether it's good or bad, yeah, they worked out that he would actually make a lot more money than he would do with his current strategy, because his current strategy was based on emotion, yeah, not on a strategic plan. Yeah, when it's good, you keep at it because it's good. When you have a good month, you just keep at it because it's going to be a great month. Yeah. When it's a bad month, sometimes you've got to accept it's a bad month. You know, there's no, you know, you don't flog it and try and expect more. You still put the same amount of effort in, yeah, to actually get through. And if you remember when I do the time mastery workshop, I talk about the 20-mile march. You know, that Amundsen and his sort of quest for the South Pole just did 20 miles every day, whether it was a good day or a bad day, 20 miles, good day, bad day, 20 miles. Scott was, well, make hay where the sun shines, and, you know, do a lot when it's good, and when it's bad, we hunker down. You know, that sort of boom and bust situation causes issues and challenges. So we've got to understand that, you know, these emotions that we get, you know, within sort of money, can drive one of the biggest emotions, which is fear. Yeah, if I don't make my sales targets this month, yeah, what do I fear? If I quote a price wrong, you know, what do I fear? And often, if those fears are not kept in check and the emotion runs away, yeah, what we're doing is we're sort of buying into these false expectations appearing real. We create a far worse situation from them than's actually going to happen. So we've got to start looking at numbers, really subjectively, and actually just saying that these are just logical things that I need to make logical decisions from, and keep the emotion out of it as much as we possibly can. I don't want to be completely emotionless. When we have a good month, we should celebrate and feel good about it. When we've had a bad month, we want to use that sort of feeling of it being bad to drive us on tomorrow. Okay, but there's no point in bitching and moaning about them because they're done with their history. What we want to do is take the learnings from it. So when we look at sort of our left and right side of the brain, you'd think, well, numbers generally are going to be logical, aren't they? They're a logical thing. But the emotion kicks in as well. So there's constant battle between two. So we've got to start being a little bit more analytical and using them for this, and then only allowing the positive emotions to come in that drive positive behavior. As soon as we get a negative sort of thought, a negative feeling about numbers, then we've risked them actually getting it wrong. So anyone had an example of a looking at numbers and having a negative feeling, negative emotion on it that's potentially caused problems? Or Gary, do you want to share? Because I know you've had a few of those.
Well, yeah, I was ill. For those in the room, I'm a one-man band maintenance guy, and I got ill for 2 weeks, so I couldn't work at all. No workers, so no work, no income, basically. And then it took, because I was ill, I wasn't able to go view or price jobs for those 2 weeks. So there was nothing lined up when I got better as well. So for 3.5 weeks, I had 0 turnover. So looking at the numbers, that made me want to cry, because there was 0 turnover for almost 4 weeks. But yeah, it got emotional, and I was just like, oh, I'm going to fold and I'm going to have to close my company and all that. But actually, no, you don't. When you think logically and you think, all right, well, just deal with it and get on with it. It's a case of, right, what do I need to do? Let's do marketing, get sales, get jobs lined up as quickly as I can. And yes, I'm doing all right now. So yeah, just ride that wave and get through the storm.
Yeah, there is just no point in letting the negative emotion take over. If it drives a positive emotion, which is right, I know what I need to do, get on, do it, then that's great. That's what we want to do. But a negative emotion can stop you dead in your tracks. So numbers are just a mirror on the past. They are just a reflection of what's happened. Yeah, so they are important because what gets measured is improved. If we can measure it, we can focus on it, we can improve it. If we can't measure it, then it's very difficult to start improving it. So we've got to start really understanding where those numbers are. As I said, they are just a scorecard. They are just a way to keep track of how we're doing. So in my mind, there isn't an area of the business where the numbers aren't really important. So in whatever you're doing, in whatever line of area of the business you are, whether you're the owner, whether you're the MD, whether you're a director, whether you're almost whether you sweep the floors, we can all benefit by having a clarity of what our numbers are. How are we scoring the game that we're playing? What is the goal that I'm trying to achieve, and how does that goal fit into the bigger goal of the business? But what is it that I'm trying to do, and how well am I doing towards it? So the numbers are, they're a score sheet, a barometer. Should motivate us. If you play sport, you keep score. When you win, and you've got a high score, that motivates you to come back tomorrow. When you've got a low score, you want to do better. It makes you motivated to come back tomorrow. If your numbers aren't motivating you, then you're either recording the wrong thing, or you need some help to come up with a better strategy. Because imagine if you went out, Andy, did you play a sport? Any games?
No, not really anymore. I used to play football, but no, not anymore.
Okay. So if you went out and played football and you lost 10-0, 10-0, 10-0, 10-0, 10-0, 10-0, 10-0, how motivated are you going to be about coming out and playing football again?
To be honest, I played for football teams where 10-0 we would have been happy with. Yeah, we would not. Yeah, no, it wasn't.
It's hard then to keep motivated, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
So either your strategy is wrong, which I would say if you're losing 10-0 every time you go out, probably is.
Yeah.
Or sometimes because you're not quite there yet, you need to measure in something else. So it might be, look, we haven't had a shot on target for the past 3 weeks. So let's keep a score of shots on target. Can we get 5 shots on target? So we can change the measure to something that we can see that we can improve, that drives a positive motivator. So sometimes you're in business, we're not getting the results we want in that particular area. So we could look at different areas where we can get that motivation from. The thing with numbers is everyone understands them. There's not a language barrier, so it doesn't matter where you come from, you're going to understand the numbers. And we can compare them. I said reflection, they help us make decisions. And when we come to the profit and loss and within the business, they are the lifeblood. Okay, they really are fundamentally important to actually running the business. So I'm going to look at the numbers from a top-down perspective now, okay, and look at saying who owns the numbers in any business. So at the top of an organization chart in a business are the shareholders. Okay, so Roger, what numbers are the shareholders responsible for? What are they interested in as a shareholder of a business?
Dividend in the end.
Dividends, yep.
Also the value of the shares.
Excellent. Good answer. Okay, so if you own shares in any business, your view of success is, have I got my dividends, or am I getting more dividends? And are my shares increasing in value? Because to be honest, that's one of the only reasons really you want to invest in a business. So if you invest on the stock exchange, you invest through your pension, whatever it is, you're interested in, am I going to get a return on my investment? I put £1,000 in, I want to get more than £1,000 out. Okay, so the shareholders are responsible for this. Overall, they want dividends and shareholder value. So in order to drive that, who does the shareholder appoint?
Depends what sort of level of shareholder they are, but if they're a senior shareholder that owns a big stake in the company, then they may choose the directors or something.
So they will appoint managing director. Okay, so the managing director is now in charge of delivering dividend and shareholder value. Now, within a profit and loss account, which number is ultimately the MD responsible for that drives dividend and shareholder value? Phil?
Profit.
Profit. Okay, because without profit, I can't pay dividends, and without profit, there is no shareholder value.
Yeah.
So the managing director owns the bottom figure on the P&L account. Now, for a lot of small businesses, when you start a business, the MD is the shareholder as well. So they're sitting here and they're sitting here, which ultimately gives them a conflict of interest. Because if you're a shareholder of your business and you're not getting a dividend and shareholder value, who do you sack?
Can't sack yourself, can you?
Exactly. Okay. So, but in a big business, you just turn around and sack the MD. Well, look, Mr. and Mrs. MD, you're not running my business in the way you should be. Therefore, you need to go, and I'll bring in a better MD. But in a small business, that doesn't happen. They are the same, one and the same.
Yeah.
The MD, now needs to employ some key roles in order for them to grow the business. So the first role they look at is marketing director. Okay, and the marketing director is responsible for generating leads in the business, new business inquiries. Okay, so if the marketing director is not generating new leads, then the marketing director needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
It's a bit like a football team. You know, if your strikers aren't scoring goals, yeah, then the striker needs to be replaced. Now, unfortunately, in football, if the striker isn't scoring goals, who gets sacked?
Manager.
The MD. So again, it doesn't quite happen in business. Is the MD sits there, you know, and sacks these people because they're not performing. But at the end of the day, you know, what we're looking at here is a team performance. So the number the MD is most looking after is the profit. The marketing director is looking after the leads. Then you bring in the sales director. And the sales director is responsible for which number?
The sales.
The sales,
Closing of deals.
closing of deals.
Providing that the marketing's feeding them with the leads, they can only do, it's all working together. So as long as that is all happening, that lead generation is coming, sales gives something to work on.
Exactly. So sales is responsible for conversion, marketing is responsible for leads, and together they're responsible for sales. So if sales isn't performing, yeah, and the managing director questions sales and says, sales, why are we not converting? What's the easiest thing for sales to do?
Blame marketing.
Blame
not
marketing.
blame leads.
So I go to marketing, I say, well, marketing, you know, why aren't we getting sales? Who's marketing going to blame?
Sales for not converting the leads.
Exactly. I'm giving great leads. They're just not converting them. So the managing director's role is to manage the relationship between these two. Make sure these two are on the same page and working in the same direction. Okay, and that's why title managing directors is I manage the directors. You know, are marketing driving forwards, is sales driving forwards? They know what the goal is. Are they actually working together as a team, or are they working against each other? Next director role is the operations director. So if we look at remember the profit and loss account, if these two are responsible for sales, which number is the operations director responsible for?
Turnover. Just getting the jobs done.
Getting the jobs done.
Profit.
I would say.
Profit? Which profit?
Make sure it gets delivered.
Profit.
The gross profit. Yeah. Well, it's sort of yes and no, because actually the sales is the responsibility of these two. Operations.
I was about to say, if we've sold it for a price, they need to make sure it's built within that price, which you've kind of put direct costs.
Yeah.
So we're told how much a vehicle is, or in our instance, how much a product is. We sell it for that product, but if they take twice as long to build it, you're not going to make any money out of it.
Correct. So their job is on time, on budget, on spec.
Yeah.
You know, so the number on the P&L account is, are you actually producing it for the price that we've sold it at? Between the three of these roles is focused on gross profit. So if gross profit is down, yeah, and I'm the MD and I come to operations and say, why is gross profit down? Who's operations going to pay?
Sales.
Sales. You know, well, sales have sold it for the wrong price. Well, why are they selling it for that price? We can't produce it for that price.
Yep.
Yeah. And if I go to sales and say, well, why aren't we making gross profit? They're going to say, well, you know, operations are lazy. They don't do the job right. They keep messing it up. So we've now got another set of relationships that we have to manage. If everyone's clear what the gross profit goal is, yeah, and work together as a team, then we can achieve it. And that's the fundamental role of the MD, is to make sure everyone's playing as a team. Same as a football manager. Yeah, everyone on the pitch knows their role, knows what they should be doing, is working together. Next role is finance director. Okay, so if these three are looking after gross profit between them, what's the finance director responsible for?
Managing the cash flow of the business.
Cash flow, yeah.
to make sure that there's sufficient to buy. Yeah, make sure everybody gets paid, make sure there's enough money there, yada yada yada.
Yep. So which number on the profit and loss account though is the FD responsible for?
Expenditure.
Expenditure. Yep. Overheads.
Overheads, yeah.
Okay, but there's also another financial statement that they're responsible for, which is the balance sheet.
Yeah.
Which is where's the cash?
Pulling everything together so you've got an idea of where you are at with everything. Yeah.
So yeah, how much have we got invested in stock? How much is in debtors? How much is in the bank account? How much do we owe the creditors? Financing, funding of the operations. You know, the financial security of the business is down to the FD. So between these lot now, these 4 roles are all to do with the net profit. And again, you know, if we're not making the profit, the MD comes in and says to the finance director, why are we not making profit? The finance director blames
Operations blame sales, sales blame marketing.
And if I go to these guys, they say, well, look, our overheads are too big. You know, we're too inefficient with our overheads. We're spending too much money on pointless things. You know, we're spending too much money on marketing. We're spending too much money on sales. So we suddenly cut the sales and marketing budgets down, and then the business goes into free fall because it's not doing anything.
No.
Any guess on what the 5th director role is?
HR.
Excellent. It's the one that most people forget because it's not on the balance sheet and it's not on the P&L. Yeah, and that one is all about people and happiness. Okay, and this one here is fundamental because these all drive profit and dividend. This one, yeah, drives value. Because if we don't have a team of people that are driving the business forwards and working together, the business has no value and has no longevity. Because suddenly all your good people are just disappearing, you know, and you end up with a load of rubbish, and no one wants to buy a business that is, you know, full of rubbish people. Okay, so hopefully you can see from this, you know, the goal of a business, you know, of any business, no matter what it is, you know, Gary's, you know, business, which is just him, you know, KFS and R&B, you know, bigger businesses. The ultimate goal that we're all playing, yeah, is drive shareholder value. Yeah, drive the dividend, yeah, and the share price, which means that we have to drive profit. So the game that we're all playing is how do we maximize the profit within our business? And everybody in the organization has a role to play towards that. That's the ultimate goal of business. There's no point in being business unless we're driving profit. Okay, so if we're playing the game and we don't understand how profit is calculated and how it all comes together, then how can we play the game? It's like playing football and not really understanding that the more goals you score, the better, you know, the more chance you've got of winning. Because either you won't bother or you'll start kicking the ball in your own net. So I'm going to skip this one a little bit because it's, you know, for a lot of you guys, it's not really sort of relevant. But when we're looking at business valuations, we're basically looking at, you know, a multiple of profits. So looking at the profits and having a multiple attached to it. I don't want to go into too much detail on that because I want to use the time I would normally go through this within the quoting side of things. Okay, so I'm just gonna skip past that because it's not that relevant for where we are. But I will show you is that a normal business, yeah, is running around about sorry, this one, so multiples of cash flow. So normal sale businesses are sold for about 2 to 2.5 times their income that they can generate, which is what we call the EBITDA figure. Okay, so that's the average. great businesses, yeah, can actually get that up to 4, 5, 6 times. And bigger businesses such as PLCs, they actually trade at 10 to 15 times EBITDA. Okay, now the way the value is created is through the systems and processes and people, which I'll come back to in a bit. So I won't go into too much detail for that one. So what we want to be able to look at here then is this multiplication of value. How do we get this multiplication? Comes through the 6 steps. So how do we at driving system, the basics of the business, the foundations? So that helps with our multiplier. Our niche, getting our cash flow, drives our profitability. So this is what drives the business going forward. In systems and processes drives valuation. So the more systemized we are, the more automation we can bring in, drives our multiplier. The people that we have drives the multiplier. Okay, so this is why these are so fundamental, because I could triple this one. I only got to increase this by 1 or 2 to have the same effect. And then synergy level that we talk about is also a multiplier. And when we start looking at acquisitions, diversification, then we're actually working on this. If I acquire a business, I'm not only adding a multiplier, but I'm also adding on profitability. Okay, so when we look at the 6 steps, from other areas, you'll start to see that each one of the workshops we deal is either dealing in growth of the profit figure, or it's increasing the multiplier. Everything that we teach with an action coach is driving one of those. So what do we need to measure then? What are the key things? So the first thing we need to think about are the financial measures within the business. So what are the financial statements that we have? Well, basically we have money coming in and coming out of the bank. So we've got to have a bank reconciliation. We've got to reconcile what the money, that the bank says we've got, to our own records. We've got to have weekly cash flow forecasts, which should be, say, this is a responsibility of the FD to say, when's our money going to run out? If we had no more money coming in, when do we run out of cash? Because cash is the lifeblood of the business. We've got to look at the aged debtors and creditors. The monthly profit and loss account, the balance sheet. We've got to work on budgets, and the final one is going to be key performance indicators. Okay. I'm going to skip a couple of these ones here because I want to just work a little bit on the pricing side of things. So I'm not going to worry about cash flows and bank reconciliations at this stage, because Gary, we've done this before, and it's not going to be that relevant to you guys because you're not going to be working on them. So the first thing that we want to sort of look at is cash. Okay, because in any business, turnover is vanity. Profit is sanity. Cash is king. As soon as the business runs out of cash, it has no business. You can have the best sales pipeline in the world. Okay, you can be the most efficient producer of whatever you produce in the world, but if you run out of cash, you can't stay in business. So these are what I would say are the key ways that we can actually generate more cash in a business. We can either up sales, and when I say sales, it means sell and the cash comes in. We can increase our prices, which I know a lot of you guys are doing at the moment because of the inflationary pressures that we've got to keep pushing the prices up. We can reduce debtors, so we can actually reduce the amount that's owed to us. So we need to make sure that customers pay on time, and we have our money, and that we're not lending it to them. We need to reduce stock levels. So carrying too much stock means our cash is tied up in things. And that's no good. We need it in our bank account to be investing in stuff that actually makes money. We can get rid of unused assets. So we might have assets sitting around doing nothing. Or we can reduce costs, we can reduce overheads. And our sort of final one, once we've all done of those, we can actually go and borrow some more money or get more funding. Okay. So when it comes to being the finance director, there are limited ways that we can generate cash, but that's really the responsibility of the FD, is to actually be looking at all of those areas and saying, where do I need to make savings? Now, for KFS and R&B, you've got somebody in that role doing that on a day-to-day basis. Gary, you have to do this on a Friday afternoon. Okay, it still has to be done. Doesn't matter how big you are, how small you are, you've always got to be looking at these key things to actually make it work. So, okay. So each debts, creditors, I'm not going to go into that into too much detail. Certainly, if you're in the sort of sales perspective, understanding of your aged debtors and creditors is really important, because there's no point in selling more stuff to people who aren't paying, because that's not helping the game. Yes, turnover might go up, but the cash flow coming in isn't actually going to help us move forwards. So looking at the age debt report is really, really key. So, okay, so there's different ways we can do that. So the one I want to spend a little bit of time on then is the P&L, okay, because this is where a lot of you guys are, and where within operation, in sales and operations, you have an impact pretty much on all of these figures, definitely on the first three. So any business, doesn't matter what you do, any shape or form, a P&L fundamentally comes down to these 5 numbers. How much do I sell? What was the cost of producing what I sell? My gross margin, which is the profit on those, overheads of running the business, and the net profit. So a lot of profit and loss accounts that I see from the accountant's report, I've just got loads and loads and loads of data, loads of information, and you end up looking at it and going, oh, it's too much information, and therefore you switch off. So I call it the Indian restaurant syndrome. I think I mentioned that before. So Andy, do you eat Indians? Yeah. So you go into an Indian restaurant. How big's the menu?
Massive, usually.
Massive.
Yeah.
Okay, so about 10 pages. Yeah. So what do you always order?
Chicken madras, rice, and like a naan or something like that.
Okay. So when somebody presents you with a profit and loss account and the numbers, all you see is all these numbers, and then it's too much information, and you just go, okay, I'll just do what I always do. Okay, so we start to switch off. If there's too much information in there, we start to switch off. So sometimes we want to simplify it, because the only number we're really interested in is this bottom figure here. That's the game of the business. Within that, I want to know what my overheads are, what my margin is, and what my cost of sales are, and where am I focused on. So Phil, you're very much focused up here.
Yeah, on the sales.
You're also one eye here, because you're still interested in the operations and what we make. Okay, so no, you haven't necessarily got a direct control over that. You've got an influence over it. So you're working with your operations team to maximize gross margin, because between the 3 of you, that's what your goal is.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you bring in the finance director, which does the overheads. So between 4 of you, you're responsible for net profit. So if we break this down into something like this, when we're starting to look at budgeting, and reporting, then we can look at a little bit more detail, and we can actually say that our sales income, our cost of sales, actually gets split between direct costs and direct labor. Because most of us are manufacturing or doing some work, and therefore there's a labor element and a materials element. Now, for most businesses, that ratio of labor to materials is about the same. It might go up and down a little bit, but if you're involved at this level, you need to understand what ratio of direct cost and direct labor generally goes into your products. Okay, and how that relates to what's actually being sold. So if I'm in operations, we're selling this level, I need to understand really how my direct costs are associated to that. And something's a direct cost because if I stop selling that product, I don't pay for the direct cost or labor. Now, labor is a little bit more difficult because you wouldn't just suddenly sack everybody the moment the orders go down. Labor is more of a fixed direct cost, whereas actual material costs are more variable. So, Roger, are you signaling
what the difference between salaries and labor is?
Sorry, between
direct labor and salaries.
Direct labor, direct labor is anything that touches the product that's being sold.
Mm-hmm.
So that goes into the manufacturing of it. So direct labor would be salaries, if you pay your direct labor salaries. Some direct labor is paid by the hour.
I see, yes.
Okay, so I don't care whether it's paid by the hour or as a salary. Does it directly go into the production of the product? Because you can see down here, salaries here, so that would be the administration running the operation. So those guys don't actually touch the product. So if for 1 month we didn't sell anything, I wouldn't need any of my direct labor, but I would still need my overhead people to run the operations.
Sure, got it, yeah.
Okay, so when we look at this, there's no right or wrong with this. A lot of people say, oh, it's, you can overcomplicate it. You're basically saying you touch the product or service. If you do, then you're direct. If you don't officially touch the product or service, then you're more administration.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then if we break the overheads down, I tend to look at it in these sort of 3-4 areas. So our overall sort of support, administration salaries, establishment cost of running the actual building itself, finance, and administration costs for legals and things like that. So these are generally set for the whole year. Okay, and the finance director will generally give us, what these figures are going to be. To run the operation for the next 12 months is going to be this. Okay, and they won't change unless something, some big step change either up or down happens within the business. So when we're looking at this side of things, what we can then do is actually break this down to the next level. So we're looking to break it down a little bit further. So we would then start saying, well, actually, our sales figure should be made up for things that we sell. So, in this case, product A, B, and C. You might have 100 products, you might have just one product in there. Gary, we did yours and we split it into 2. We had commercial and retail. Okay, so we break it down into its component parts because we want to see how this machine works. It's not just a sales figure. It's it's a way to actually break it down. So product A, we've got 1,000 of them. We sell them for 36 pounds, I think it says, which gives us 144,000 revenues. Okay, which gives us over 1 million sales. And then we have the cost of raw material for each of those. Any packaging, transport costs that go in there, and then we bring in the net salaries of staff who are directly responsible for production. Okay, so when we look at this, and then we start costing for jobs, this is all we're doing. We're just trying to replicate these figures for a particular job. So if I'm going to sell it for 250 quid, how much is it going to cost me to produce it? All the costs of production and distribution, how much labor is going to go into it, and what, excuse me, what is the gross profit, therefore, I'm looking to actually achieve. And for most businesses, they should have a sort of a targeted gross profit percentage. So we can see here, this business here, we're targeting 56.86% profit. So when I'm quoting a job, if I'm quoting a job at less than 56, then it's going to bring this number down when we actually do it. If I put it up, yeah, then it's going to have a positive effect on that. Okay. Now, there is a time where taking a lower margin, so let's say I would take a 40% margin on this business, that would be acceptable. Any idea when taking a lower margin would be acceptable? Percentage margin.
Possibly to get the job, to win the tender.
To win the, so there's could be to win the job. So if this was a buying a new customer, I would say, well, actually on the first job, I'll take 40% because I know that once they're in, I can then gradually increase the percentages up. Yeah. So that could be one. Yeah, good. Any others?
Sometimes you may have to take a lesser job just to keep the thing moving, to keep cash coming in, to keep the overhead covered, to keep moving forward.
Yeah. So if I'm in a
Tread
quiet
water,
period,
shall we say?
yeah. If I'm in a quiet period, you know, then I might decide to sacrifice some margin in order, because it's still contributing.
Yeah.
I've still got 40% contribution, so I might just accept it in a quiet period that I would take a lower figure. Yep.
Yep.
Also, I think you get some jobs where there are quite high subcontract costs, but in terms of the actual amount of work you're doing to manage it, it's quite low. And if you were to factor those out, then the margin would be a lot better and you still make a good profit on the job.
Yep. So where and I would say those sorts of jobs are where it doesn't impact my ability to do the same amount of turnover.
Yeah.
So if I got a job in, I completely outsourced it, so I didn't need any of my own internal resource because my internal resource is limited to what it is. Yeah, then I might say, well, I'll take 10% on that job because it's no effort.
Yeah.
And it's pure 10% profit. Now, if I did that, I would probably want to show that separately. I wouldn't want to show that in here because when I come to the MD and I'm reporting a 40% margin, what's the MD first going to say?
What's going on?
What's going on? You know, we should be doing 50, 60%. But if I show my normal stuff does 56% and I've got this extra line in here of subcontract work and I've made 10% on it, then I'm happy with that. Mm-hmm. Okay, so sometimes we need to show the figures in a light that actually reflects what's going on rather than just chucking it all in one big lump. Okay, there is another reason why we would take a 40% margin rather than 50%, 56. Similar to that, but
to stop your competitors from getting it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah. So again, I put that a little bit like the buying a customer.
Yeah, you know? Okay.
So I can buy a customer, but that's a sort of an extension of that. Yeah.
Also, if it's the first job of its kind that you've ever done, and there's learning to be gained, and you expect it to be less efficient because you've never, there's uncertainties.
Okay. Yeah.
As long as you don't have too many of those, you're okay.
Yeah. So again, that's a little bit like buying a customer. So I know it's going to take a little bit longer, so I'll build a bit more fat into it, and therefore, I'll probably take a bit of a hit on the first job, but I'll ramp it up in the future. So there's a bit of an R&D in that first one because I know I'm going to get future ones. Yep. So let me change the question a little bit. What's the number one goal of the business?
Profit.
Profit.
So we don't have any losses.
Yeah. So we don't. So again, if it can fit a gap. Yeah.
Could I qualify that and say sustainable profit?
Okay, you can add sustainable on. Yeah. But we're looking at, sustainable is not profit in just one period. It's an ongoing, our ability to generate profits continually in the future.
Can you say the question again, Kevin?
What the original question?
Hmm.
So when would I accept a 40% margin over what our normal here is 56%. And then I ask you, what's the number one goal of the business? To generate
Revenue.
no
Profit.
profit. So why would I accept a 40% margin? How does accepting 40% margin help me generate more profit?
Just better.
If there's lower overheads for some reason.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm thinking of gross margin here. So
Or if it's a very high value.
high value, yep, or high quantity.
Yeah.
Okay, so if the overall figure, so if I said, you know, I could actually put £1 million of gross profit onto these figures, yeah, would you take that?
Yeah. It's really good.
Yeah, even if the margin was 40%.
Yeah, because 40% is better than no percent.
Yeah. Okay, so we if because the ultimate aim is to make this figure, yeah, as big as we possibly can. So if it helps this figure, yeah, so by volume, so if you're going to actually give me lots of volume here, I can accept a lower margin because the ultimate figure that I'm interested in is actually the profit figure, not just the percentage. The percentage is a guide, but it's not our be all and end all. We've got to look at both numbers.
What you don't want on there is anything red with a minus next to it.
Or something that if I'm doing a job, let's say I was doing £1 million of work at 40%, at the expense of doing £1 million of work at 60%, I wouldn't want to do that either, would I?
No, of course you wouldn't. No.
So if I clog up the system with low margin stuff at the expense of high margin stuff, then that's not a good decision. It's still adding a positive figure, but because I've got limited resources, you know, I could be better utilizing what I'm doing. Yeah. And this is what happens in a lot of businesses is in the early days, you take on any work you can get. Yeah, I need work because I need turnover, I need profit, I need cash, but you end up doing some low value, low margin stuff, yeah, at the expense of doing high value, high margin stuff.
It's, you know, our business as well as anything, Kevin, and that's where we've had issues that the wrong blend has been going through the workshop, thus causing you problem. You've not got that steady blend going through, and if you've got the right mixture, you'll get everybody's happy. You've got profit coming through. The shareholders and directors are all happy in the jobs that you're doing because you've got that model going through. But you stick through the wrong jobs and the wrong products, that's when it's going to cause an issue.
Exactly. Yep. So you've always got, every business has a finite resource on what it can do. Now, if you're never using that full resource, then it sort of doesn't matter what you charge out at, because anything you do will drive profit. So in one phase, it's okay to do the low value, low margin stuff because it's still contributing. But as soon as you start getting to maximum of your resource utilization, then you've got to focus on the high value, high margin stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, do people ever use a metric because, you know, sort of the ratio of labour costs to gross profit? Yeah. That's giving that's essentially, it covers a lot of what you're saying, isn't it? It's a subsector of this figure. So I could look here and say, well, my labour cost here, you know, is about what, 28%, you know, and direct cost is sort of 30, you know, 35, 30%. So you're now breaking it down into the next level of detail, and you'd look at those labour costs. You'd also look, if we go to the next, back to this slide here, you might find that the margin on product A, you know, slightly higher than the margin on product B. So we'd want to be pushing sales to actually go after product A because it's a far more profitable job. Okay, so we need to start looking at how, not just the turnover figure or even just the gross profit figure, but how it's made up. You know, what are the different product lines, different service lines that we're doing
and where's the profit being generated within our business. The more granularity we can get into that, the better decisions we can actually make to move it forwards. Otherwise, we end up just driving for turnover, and we can end up doing loads of more work, but our margin is just disappearing. So we just become busy fools. You know, we're doing more and more work, but we're not actually making any more money. And sometimes it's better to almost halve your turnover, get rid of clients, get rid of products that just don't generate the margin that we need.
Mhm.
Okay, so when we're pricing jobs, when we're doing our quoting, that's all we're doing. It's just a preview of what profit and loss account will look like once that job is finished. And we can work two ways with this. We can work what we call bottom up, which says, you know, for this sort of job, I want to make 50 grand profit, and therefore I put all my costs to work out how much I need to sell it for. Or we can say the top down, which is I can sell it for this, how much profit am I going to make? Okay, so we start at the bottom and we work up, or we start at the top and we work down. Those are generally the two ways that we do job costing. Are there any sort of specific questions around job costing in your particular area that you want to bring up at this stage? I know, Andy, you're just moving into this, so you know, Phil's been doing this for decades. So anything that's sort of,
And it's still a constant battle, but we
it's
get
still a
there.
constant battle, yeah. So,
I think you've got to consider the competition.
Yeah.
Because if you overprice things, you won't get any jobs, and all the money you put in, the time and money you put into quoting will be for nothing.
Yeah, and that's where I would generally do a top-down calculation. Yeah, what's the going rate? What's the market rate for this? It's 200 quid, right? Now let's put my prices in and see what profit I get out of that.
And if it's not enough, then you do something else.
Yeah, or do something else, or change it, or you just work at it and see what you can achieve. So that's, I would say, when we're doing job costing, in our mind, that's what we're focusing on. What is the margin that this job can actually generate? Yeah, what are my direct costs? What are my direct sort of purchases? My direct labor. Okay, and if you understand how your profit and loss account is made up, yeah, and you know what margin you're targeting, then you can do that. Now, there is another way that, because when you do a job cost, also you've then got to add in your overhead, yeah, and your profit. Okay, so the overhead is all of those costs that are not directly related to the actual production of the actual asset itself. As I said, whether you produce 1 unit or 100 units, these will generally stay the same. Okay, so you could break your salaries down into the key people, your establishment costs down into rent rates, etc., sales and marketing costs, finance costs. Okay, so when we're creating a budget for the business, that's what we're doing on a year-by-year basis. Yeah, when we're looking at our job costing, when we're actually quoting for jobs, we know that if we can make 56% margin, then there should be enough profit in there to cover the overheads. Okay, sometimes though we need to allocate overheads to the job itself. So let's say that we've well, actually both R&B and Phil, I know it's slightly different, but you've both got plasma machines, haven't you? Plasma cutting machines.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are big pieces of equipment, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah, which cost a lot of money, So there's a cost to run it, which is generally a bit of power, and the labor cost to actually run it, and then there's the capital depreciation of that piece of equipment.
Mhm.
So what we can do with that, let me just get my whiteboard. Okay, so let's say that we've got a job here that is, a sales figure of, let's say, 200, and we know that labor is 50, parts are 100, and it makes 50 margin. So we know that's 25% margin, not a great margin. Okay.
Yeah.
And so so let's say there's 200 units at £1. Is our £200 in sales. Okay, and I've got this laser machine. Okay, so I've bought this laser machine, and it's cost me, let's say, £10,000.
Mhm.
Okay, now this laser machine is used predominantly to produce these widgets.
So are you using this exercise? Have we got the laser machine when we're doing this to start with?
You can do it either way. So you can use
Okay.
this to see whether it's worth me buying the laser
Find the
machine.
laser machine, yeah.
I'm just going to use it as we actually have a laser
Yeah,
machine.
have it. Okay, that's fine.
It doesn't matter which way, because one is you're just estimating one, and one's the reality. So this laser machine cost me £10,000.
Yep.
Now, as I use the laser machine, I need to allocate some of that cost to that job. Yeah, because in order to do this job, the direct costs of labour, parts, but also, there's an element of the laser machine in there.
Mhm.
How do I allocate this to this?
Depreciation.
So there's a writing off. Yeah. The normal accounting function of depreciation doesn't work on this because it's too general. I write the machine off at £2,000 a year. Okay, so it's a form of depreciation, but it's a slightly more in-depth calculation on this.
You're basically taking this 10,000 figure that you have here, and over how many did you say widgets you're making? 200 widgets.
200 widgets, yeah.
You've got to allocate some of that cost here has to be put into here to bring that down. So for argument's sake, you've got to take say a 20 quid per widget that you do. You put that aside to cover the cost of what your machine is.
Yeah. So what I'm asking you is, how do we calculate what that 20 quid is? Because you just made a figure up.
Mhm.
And I want to be a bit more scientific in how we actually calculate that 20 quid.
Do you take a percentage of the labour element? Do you take a percentage?
You could do, but how does that relate to? That's just another fictitious figure, isn't it?
Well, you've got depreciation and you've got utilization, and you've got utilization as a whole over the year and the utilization on the job.
Yeah.
So if the machine gets used on 3 jobs a year, and it depreciates to 2,000 per year, then you can take the total. You can take 2,000 and divide it by 3.
Cool. Yeah.
Right.
So we say that. Let's say that laser machine, we're saying it's lasts 5 years. Yeah. Which means that there's £2,000 per year that it wears out.
Yep.
And Roger's point there was, if there are 3 jobs per year.
Size.
Yeah. Can I say 4 jobs per year, Roger?
What? Yeah. It makes it easier.
Yeah. That there's £500 per job. Yeah. Needs to get allocated to that. So now I put £500 to there. Yeah. We're not doing particularly well, are we?
No. Well, your sales costs got to go up.
Okay, so I could put the sales costs up to cover that and say, oh, okay, I need to allocate more into this. Yeah.
The point though, of a laser machine that it takes the labour down.
That was my point at the beginning. If you're starting with that labour rate or that labour cost, and you've got the machine,
Yeah.
Okay, so I could say, well, look, I don't need the labour now. Yeah.
You're still £400 down though.
I'm still £400 down.
Yeah.
You need to increase.
You've got a product run of 200 units, haven't you?
Sorry?
You need to increase your utilization.
Okay. Okay. Yep. Like this. Wait. Tell me more. How do I get? Because at the moment this doesn't work, does it?
No.
You need to sell more items, or just sell more.
Yeah, I need to sell more, but what's the actual figure that's causing this 500 quid?
The number of jobs you've got.
Yeah.
So as I say, utilise it more, produce more. You spent £10,000. So there's no point spending £10,000. And if we go back a stage further, if you only do 3 jobs a year, or 4 jobs as this example, there's no point in spending £10,000 on a machine to do 4 jobs a year.
No.
You want that £10,000 to be put in to save you money on a job that you do 10,000 a year, for argument's sake, because you're going to get your return investment back quicker. If the machine itself reduces the labour element of it, you want to look at investing that, because in the overall picture of it, as long as you've got plenty of work going through for that particular model, you'll save time, you'll be more profitable.
Okay, so what we've got to do with this, and it's called ABC, activity-based costing. Okay, so the activity finds the percentage that is allocated to each job.
Yep.
So we need to not break this down into this machine actually do 10,000 units per year.
Yeah.
That's its maximum. It could do 10,000 units per year. If it can do 10,000 units per year, then its cost, is, sorry, let's say it's 1,000 units a year. Yeah, then its cost is £2.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm doing 200 units. Okay, so it still doesn't work because it's 400. So then we start saying, well, actually, we need to be pushing 10,000 units through this. And that means that our cost then is, it's 40 quid. If that replaced the labour, then we can make this work.
Use another analogy, use a printer's analogy. If you go and ask to get something printed and you want 100 printed, it costs you whatever it is, say £100. But say you want 200 printed, and it costs you £10 more because the setup's already done, and that machine's being used. And it's making sure that these printing companies, using that as again, that machine is constantly running every minute, because every time it stops, that's it. It's losing money massively. And to get it going again,
it's costing you money. The moment you stop using it, it's costing you business money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got to feed it. Exactly.
Okay. So when we have a piece of equipment like this, and don't forget, the overhead of the business, if we go back to here, the overhead of the business, this is just one big laser machine. This business here costs us £120,000, a month to actually run. And we know that this business could actually produce X number of units. Therefore, every unit that we produce has a overhead allocation of this amount. So whether it's one machine, whether it's a person, whether it's a building, whether it's the whole operation, the same principles are actually at play here, that we're looking for this activity base so that we can allocate the overhead in the right way. If we're only doing one job, one thing, it doesn't matter. But where we've got different utilization of these assets, then what it can help us do is get a more a better understanding of how much each of these products that we sell actually influence the overhead. Okay, so if we looked at this, and let's just say that out of this we came up with let me just do these numbers again. So 200 units at £1, which is 200. I'm going to leave some labour in at 50. I'm going to put in the machine at 50 and the parts at 50. Okay, let's say that's 150, so that leaves 50 GP. Yeah, and then we've got our overhead at 40, and that's 10. Let's just say it works on that basis. And this is where, you know, Roger, your point of the outsourcing kicks in. Okay, because I could do the same 200 units, okay, at 10% and make 20 of them. Yeah, so here, which job should I do and which shouldn't I do? So 200 units, I make 50 quid. 200 units, I make 20 quid.
Make 50 quid.
Make 50 quid. Okay. But because I'm outsourcing this, there's no overhead allocation required. It's not utilizing any of my resource. It's not utilizing my machine or anything. So I actually make 20 quid on this.
Twice as much.
Which one should I do now?
The outsource.
Yeah.
Wrong, both of them.
Well, yeah, don't let the machine sit on your yard doing nothing.
Yeah. Okay, so this is why when we're looking at quoting, you know, we're budgeting, but you know, budgeting is just, you know, quoting is just a smaller form of, you know, overall budgeting, is how we allocate the overhead and how we incorporate that can be critical when resources are starting to get tight. When resources are plentiful and I can just throw more resource at it, it's not really a problem. Okay, because it's just about, let's get more volume, because I can keep up with it. But where resources are tight, we need to start allocating overhead to particular jobs, you know, and activity-based costing is the way that is the best way to do that. Okay, now it could be on a parts, you know, throughput in volume. It could be on a per hour basis. You know, it could be on a square foot basis. So how much does that department, how much of the space does it take up? If it takes up 50% of the space, it should take 50% of the overhead. Okay, so we can start looking in more detail around what we're actually trying to achieve with our pricing. I know it's a little bit difficult to get your head around of that without seeing it in your context, but are there any specific questions around that come out of that? Okay, so but always, whatever we're doing, always come back to this factor that what we're trying to achieve here is profit. So if it's going to deliver more profit, yeah, then just I've lost my share now. Share screen. Okay. So what we're trying to deliver is to increase the profitability of the business. So within our forecasts, what we want to be able to see is, okay, what did we do last year or previous jobs? You know, if I'm looking job by job, what did I do on a previous job? What did I do on this job? What did I do this month? And what was my quote? What was my budget? And we're looking at both the physical numbers and the percentages, because you've got got to look at both. You can't just look at percentages, and you shouldn't just look at numbers. You have both sides of the equation in there to actually work it out. So at a top level, you know, as a board, you know, we should be looking within the profit and loss account along here and making sure that we're in line with where we felt we should be. Okay, and say that can be done on a job basis as well. Any other question on the profit and loss account? Are there any items on the P&L that we don't understand or got a question around? Most of the time, that should be sort of fairly standard, but often there's a question that, you know, you've always looked at a P&L and wondered, well, what's that all about? No? Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
So one that most people then do struggle a little bit around is the balance sheet. Okay, so we often look at the profit and loss account. We know it's sales, costs, profit, but on a balance sheet can be a little bit more tricky to understand. So the best way to think of a balance sheet is it's a snapshot of a business. You know, it's a photograph of where's the money currently. Okay, where's the money gone? So the money's coming in and out of the business all the time. It's moving around, and it's a bit like musical chairs. If I said stop now, yeah, and you looked in your business, how much cash would there actually be in that business at any one time? You know, probably just what's in the petty cash tin. But that doesn't show a true reflection of the value of the business. So what we have is, you know, this is a sort of a typical balance sheet, and it's broken down basically into assets, which is where our money's gone, yeah, and liabilities, as in where's our money come from. So money has to come in and go out within a business. So if we look at this, okay, we've got debits, which is our fixed assets. So our money can go into land and buildings, plant and equipment, motor vehicles. We can invest it in other things. It can go into current assets, stock, debtors, bank, prepayments, and money that we've lent out. The difference between these fixed assets are generally things that will last more than 1 year. So if I buy a computer, that exact computer will be here in 12 months' time. With stock, current assets, these are assets that will change, yeah, month on month, year on year. So a piece of stock probably won't be here or shouldn't really be here in 12 months' time. The stock value will be there, but the specific item won't be there. And so an asset is one that we'll get the benefit of that asset into the future. Okay. So where's our money gone? It's gone out of my hands and it's gone into these assets. Our credits are where has the money come from? So we can borrow from our overdraft, we borrow from our creditors, we actually borrow from the tax man. So we take in VAT and PAYE, we can borrow from loans, and owner's equity, we can borrow from, you know, the shareholders and money that we've retained within the business. Okay, so that is really all a balance sheet is. Yeah, it's just a list of where our money's gone to and where our money's come from. Oops, let's go back there. So, and it's shown generally, this is sort of the modern way of showing it. It's not side by side, it's one above the other. This is our debits, you know, our current assets and fixed assets. These are our liabilities, and here's our shareholders' equity. And the beauty of this is if they are on both sides, every in must have an out, and therefore it will always balance 234, 762, 234, 762. Okay, so I know most of you probably don't look at this on a regular basis. This is again more of a finance director and business owners statement, but are there any questions around what goes into a balance sheet?
Mm.
Happy with that, Phil?
Yeah, it's just your ins, your outs, and where you are at, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not overly complicated. I
yeah.
mean, if I'm looking at finance directors, there's things that we need to question around this.
Yeah, you challenge certain things. Why is that at that level, and wherever it may be? Yeah,
Yeah.
you can look at that.
So,
There's nothing here against a budget, is there? Because it's just what it is. It's just the situation of where the business is at.
yeah,
You're not doing any loss or anything at that point. You're just going, where are we today? How much cash we got? Yada yada yada.
Yeah.
We've got going out. Yeah, we can carry on. We're all good. Don't need to worry about it. I'll leave you alone for a month.
So the only thing to always remember with this is obviously this business here is quite cash rich. Okay. Now, if this figure was low and we wanted more cash, then obviously we can affect it by making more profit. We can also borrow more money down here, which would improve this. We can increase our liabilities and get more money in from suppliers by paying later, or we can actually reduce our debtors and sell some assets. Okay, so these are the ways that we can generate more cash. But we are, we're limited to really what's on that P&L, what's on that balance sheet to actually achieve that. Okay, so that's really our profit and loss and our balance sheet. Through that. Okay, so when we come to doing our annual budgets, then all budgets are a view into the future of what the business can do. It's our what if. What if we achieved twice the sales we did last year? What if we were half the size of what we were last year? It's just a way to actually start measuring where we're actually trying to get to. Because if we can start to visualize it, we can actually start to materialize it. If we go into a year with no budget, then we're really not setting our profit target. As a shareholder, you want to know what's the profits we're going to make this year. Is my money safe, carried on invested in this business? Mr. Mrs. Managing Director, I've invested this amount of money in the business. What are you going to do with it? If we're not setting budgets, we're not setting targets that we're all aiming for. And as a company, if I'm working in there in sales in this business and I don't have a target, how do I know what's good and what's bad? I'll just go through the same process as I did last year, which may or may not be good. Okay, so it's very much about sort of setting your reticular activating system. What is I'm actually trying to drive to achieve? Where am I actually going to go? And then how do I measure myself towards it? Now, if I come in under budget, if I go back to my emotional thing, how do I feel about it if I'm under budget? Sorry, your thumbs up, I presume that's on a cost budget, Greg, rather than I was thinking of a profit budget. If I'm lower profit than I actually thought I was going to be,
will you be disappointed because you've not achieved what you set out to achieve at the beginning of the year?
Yeah. So there is a chance then that the emotion's going to come in, and I'm going to get a bit fed up. I didn't achieve what I was going to achieve. Yeah, but again, it's just a reflection of what's happened in the past. So, what I'm looking for really is, okay, so it's not getting emotional about it, is, okay, what did I learn this year? And what was it that caused me to not make the profit that I said I was going to make? Was it in my control? Did I miss something? Was it external control, which I've got no control about? But more importantly, okay, what do I need to do next year or next period in order to be better? And this is where a lot of people stop doing budgets, is because they set a budget either too low and then they achieve it but they didn't really try hard, or they set it too high and they go, oh well, I'm never going to achieve that, and then they get disappointed. Okay, shouldn't matter. You know, that's what we did. Okay, so what are we going to do next time? So it's not, again, not focusing on the past. It's learn from the past, look at it, interrogate it. Right, this is what we did. That's what we said we were going to do. Why did we get it so wrong? What happened? You know, and often things happen, things change, you know, and you can always flex the budget halfway through the year. Don't do it too often, but you can flex it to allow for what's going on. But then you've got to be looking, right, what am I actually going to do as a result of this? Okay, so budgeting for me is fundamental. You know, I don't think you can run a successful business without a budget, you know, without understanding a budget, and everybody who's got an input into achieving the profitability has to understand how the budget is put together and what their responsibilities are, and where they come into, either as an individual or as a team. Okay. We talk about break even in a business. Yeah, and this does come back to a bit of sort of the job costing side of things. But just to understand where, you know, what we're looking at from a break even point of view, that every business, you know, has a set of fixed costs. And if you think about these as being your overheads, so our overheads here at 500,000 a year, you know, we have to, those, no matter how many units we sell, are always going to be there. We then have our variable costs. So these costs go up with sales. Okay, so as sales increase, the variable costs increase. And therefore, if we add the two together, we end up with our total costs. Okay, so if we add in our sales line here, our revenues, and anything down this part, so below break even, yeah, is a loss-making situation. And anything up here, sorry, anything down here is loss-making, anything up here is profit-making. Okay, so loss and profit. Now, what can happen is fixed costs are generally fixed for a period. But if I'm looking here and saying at this point here, you know, I'm making reasonable profit. If I then invest in another building, another piece of equipment, yeah, my fixed cost is going to go up. Therefore, my total costs, yeah, it's going to go up proportionally. So this line here now comes here. I've now moved my break-even figure a lot higher. So I've got to be sure that this investment is going to generate that increase. And that's when we come back to costing in for pieces of equipment, that if I'm going to spend £10,000 on that sort of laser machine, yeah, is it going to generate me that extra number of units? Okay, so we're always looking to say, right, you know, on the current, because this point here, yeah, break even is I'm a neutral situation. So that's almost the worst case scenario that I want to be. I don't want to be in a loss. Yeah, if I can get back to break even, then I'm still in the game. So I've got to know what I do in order to sort of, you know, not go beyond this point, and therefore I've got to know what that point is. So Roger?
Yeah, I was thinking there are things that how can I say, you as a business you ought to invest in, but you can get away without investing. It's just you're being a little bit naughty by not doing them. How do you factor those in? Not always clear cut.
I think that one comes back to, again, it's about mitigating risk.
Yeah.
You know, if I ought to, then what's the consequence of me not doing it? You know, if I don't invest in health and safety, you know, is the risk that I'm going to get closed down?
Yeah.
Yeah, or is the risk I'm going to be shut down for a period of time?
Yeah.
So we're always trying to calculate, well, what's the risk of that? Yeah, and therefore, what's the cost of not doing it? Now, if the cost of not doing it is not that high, then why bother? It's a nice to have. And if I've got excess money that I'm sitting there going, well, what should I do with this? I might spend it on that. Yeah, but if the risk of it going wrong, then it's a must-have.
Okay, yes. I'm thinking about things like specialist design codes and things like that, when there are sort of, there's more general HSE guidance out there. I'm talking as a consultant here, but it's probably best to you'll get the most comprehensive, be able to deliver the most comprehensive advice if you use the codes, but the buyer in this case may not understand all that. You can, if you excuse me, you can bullshit your way through on the cheap and cheerful way, and the customer will be none the wiser. So it's then a matter of sort of professional integrity rather than the profit. Do you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I mean, I would sort of, most things should, in some shape or form, come back to, where's me, the organisation chart. Should come back to this. So if we're trying to sell anything to anybody, yeah, if we can tap into one of these, then we can make the sale.
Yes. So in this case, you're tapping into marketing. You're basically saying we use all the the best codes out there, including XXX and so forth. And then if other people aren't saying that, then we've got a marketing edge on them.
Yeah, I was thinking more from the customer's point of view.
Yeah.
So if what we're selling to a customer, if it's going to generate more leads, improve your conversion rate, reduce your costs, reduce your overheads, improve your balance sheet, or keep your people happy and make them stay longer, yeah, then those people are going to be interested in buying it.
Yeah.
If it doesn't achieve any of those, it's going to be on a wish list.
Sure.
So it's going to be a harder sell to actually achieve. Okay, internally, it's the same thing, internally, I think we should, I've got one client that was saying that we need to extend the pack house. We need a bigger pack house. Okay, there's a big cost in that. So what's it going to do? Well, it's going to allow us to do more sales. We can have more throughput. Yeah, it's going to make us more efficient because we're not manhandling stuff. Yeah, it's not going to help our overhead and balance sheet. That's going to have a negative effect. But it's actually going to keep our people happy as well. So actually, it's actually helping 3 of the 4 boxes. And therefore, it's a big yes. Let's do it.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So any investment that we want in our business, Phil, if you want another salesperson, you've got to put a case together that says, right, it's going to cost 35 grand for this new salesperson, but this is the benefit. This is what it's actually going to achieve.
The risk and reward element, isn't it? You put a case together to say, I want to invest in new kit, new individual, new whatever it is. You've got to then just be able to increase that output. You've got to increase everything. It's all, and they've all got to work together.
Exactly that. It's and that's why I get when as a business grows and people take on more responsibility, they go, oh well, you're not investing in this, and I wanted this, and no one's actually buying it for me. If you sit down and put a good business case together for any investment, if somebody came to me and said, I want £1 million to do this, and it's going to generate you 5 million quid and it's going to pay back within 12 months, okay, I might not have £1 million quid on me to do it. But if I like the look of it, then yeah, I'd go and find £1 million quid to do it. And this is why I say always take the emotion out of it, come back to the numbers. What are the numbers that are key to making this work? Okay. So really that's what I would call the headline figures, the profit and loss, the balance sheet, looking at where the cash is generated, and we use that within our quoting and our estimating to gain the sales. Now we look at more sort of operational sort of factors within the key performance indicators. So again, you don't need to know what goes on under the bonnet. What you need to have is an identification of what the numbers are. So if we go back to our organization chart, we should have numbers around each of these. Okay, so our sales and marketing measures, you know, is going to be down to our sales pipeline, our funnel. You know, how many leads are coming in? Where are people in that pipeline? How many people are dropping through? What's our return on investment for our marketing? Yeah. For those that have done the sales and the marketing workshops, you know, we talk about the 5 ways. So, you know, how many leads are we generating? You know, from what source? Which marketing activity is driving, you know, the best return on investment? Because again, you know, I'd spend £20,000 on an advert all day long if I knew it could bring me in £50,000 profit. And we can compare different marketing strategies to each other. Which one's working? Which one's not working? Which one should we do more of? Put more money in? Which one should we stop? Okay, so everything within sales and marketing, we should get a breakdown to a number, and then monitor those numbers and then push and see if we can improve them. And if we come back to, you know, the difference between a sales manager and a sales director sitting at the top looking down, looking at these numbers and driving their team to actually achieve it. Sales manager is actually doing the work. And this can be a big challenge in a small business where you're trying to sort of step up and step out. You know, it's about managing other people, holding them to account to actually get the best return on each of these numbers. What activity are you doing? You're doing the right activity. We're getting the right results. Where do I need to put more investment? Where do I need to take investment out? Okay, so probably, you know, of all the areas of a business, probably the easiest one to actually record numbers on. Okay, because they're generally there. Google Analytics, emails, you know, social media. Yeah, there isn't anything within sales and marketing that you can't actually, yeah, have a number, record the number, test and measure it. Phil, as this is your key area, any questions around that? Any sort of?
No, not really. I think, as you say, we've covered most of it within there. And I think it's all about making sure that funnel is constantly being worked on. You're still pushing, you're still working to get items through. Because if you stand around and you don't do anything, you're just going to become stagnant, aren't you? And you're just going to, you can't keep living off the customers that you've got. You've got to be looking for new customers to grow the business, because there is going to be some customers that go elsewhere. That's the nature of it. You can't keep everybody. You can't keep everybody happy. You try and keep as many as you can happy, but you've got to feel that in there, and then keep the business going forward. Otherwise, yeah, you'll just stop, won't it?
Yep.
No, get all that, yeah.
And if you think about, you know, if you imagine being, you know, a top performing sales director, a marketing director, sales director, you know, you're going to have the best strategies around all of these areas.
You've got to keep working at it, and you've got to keep pushing, probing, making sure people are doing what they're doing, and manage them, direct them. That's the clues in the title of what it is. You've got to make sure that they're doing that.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay. So within the operations side, you know, the metrics then change to being, you know, on time, on budget, on spec. So, you know, what is the timeliness? Are we actually achieving our targets, you know, to get products and services out? Are we actually doing it on budget? So are we actually costing it? Are we reviewing it to what, you know, sales have sold it for? And what are our quality specifications as well? Okay. And one of the keys to this is, if we come back to our, you know, every business has limited resources. You know, you've got to understand what your limited resources are. So a couple of the books that we've done at Book Club, you know, have talked about bottlenecks. So every business has a bottleneck. You know, Gary, in your business, what's your bottleneck?
Ability to how much work, like the output of work. I'm only one guy. I do 4 days on site and 1 day admin day. So I can physically only do 4 days work on my own. So the turnover has a ceiling of what I can possibly do.
Cool. Yeah. So your bottleneck is you. Yeah. The number of hours you've got. So your number one KPI should be what?
me and how much time how much output I can do,
Yeah. How much time you spend on, fee earning work as opposed to
Chargeable
non-fee
hours.
earning work. Okay,
Yeah,
so
chargeable
you
hours.
are the resort, you are the limited resource. Therefore, your measurement should be around you.
Mm.
Yeah. If Phil, if you've got this sort of say you've got the laser machine, because we've been talking about it, that laser machine, has a limited amount of throughput that it can actually do. Back to the printers, those printers have a minimum amount or maximum amount that they can do. So therefore, monitoring how well we're utilizing that asset utilization, is going to be the key performance indicator.
Yeah.
It might
What's
be
its output?
space.
What is its output? Same as an individual, the people, you've got it, those people. We employ somebody to sell a vehicle. How many vehicles have they sold? That's the indicator. That's why a target is set for them to achieve that target. If that target isn't achieved, you then question why that's not. Then you go into your original conversation, which is, I'm not getting my leads from marketing or whatever it may be, but are they actually doing their work themselves?
Yeah.
And it's challenging, just saying everything all right, anything problems, and it's just managing that, isn't it? That's what you've got to try and do.
That's it. So you should all be thinking, in my particular area, what is my rate per? Jobs per hour, throughput per hour, sales per hour, sales per, campaign. There's always going to be a rate per something. And that's where you would start within your metrics, your key performance metrics, and saying, right, where's my limited resource, and what is my measurement of that limited resource? Because if you focus on anything that isn't your limited resource, then you're just wasting your time. Okay, because you'll get to the limit of that resource, and then your business will stop, because it can't actually achieve more than that. Okay, so what we're looking at here is, within all of this marginal gains, there's no big jumps for most businesses. It's small incremental improvements. So if I've got a 15 units per hour, how do I get to 16 units per hour? If I'm spending 80% of my time production, how do I get to 81%? 1% improvements in 100 areas gives you 100% improvement overall. That's really what we're thinking. And then the people measures, sick leave, absenteeism, happiness, appraisals, engagement, growth. Okay, there's always, even in people, there's always a way to measure what's going on. Okay, now sometimes there are what we call substantive measures, so there are actual numbers that we can record, and sometimes there's subjective measures. So if I said happiness in your business, how are you going to measure happiness? Is there a metric that you've got you can pull the number off for happiness?
People smiling when they're working. In a warehouse, I doubt that so much.
I suppose you could come up with some camera system that records the number of hours spent smiling, but okay. So the reality of that there isn't, is there? Okay, so therefore you'd have to put a subjective measurement on it. Okay, so I've got one client that does this every week. They do a happiness survey. On a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you working here or working in your job? Okay, now I had this with a client the other day about appraisals, where you sort of say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how good do you think you are at doing your job? And they would record 4 out of 5. And the manager would say, well, I think it's a 3 out of 5. Okay. When you come to subjective, do not compare two people's subjective numbers. Subjective, the only thing that's any importance with a subjective number is how do we get it? How do we get an improvement? And that's because it's subjective. Substantive is fine because we're all monitoring to the same scoring system. Subjective is your scoring system is different to my scoring system. I don't really care what you score yourself. You know, what I care about is how do we improve it. So, Gary, if you scored yourself 3 out of 5, yeah, my focus would be how do I get it to 4 out of 5. Okay, measure what, yeah, because what we're really thinking about is measure what matters. You know, what is it that we can measure that's going to have a significant impact on where we're going to go to? And that's really what with the whole thing with finance. Yes, we've got to keep a P&L and a balance sheet. You have to have that because that's how we score the overall game. But in your individual departments, find an area that you want to improve, find a measurement for that. Yeah, monitor that measurement, focus on the improvements, not the score. You know, the score is history. What are we doing to improve it? Track the improvements. Once it's at the level you want it to be, keep monitoring it, but then focus on another area. Okay, and I akin this to flying an aeroplane. Yeah, so if you're flying, has anybody flown a glider? No, but if you can imagine flying a glider, you know, what instruments have you got? What dials have you got in a glider?
Joystick.
Altitude, pitch.
Altitude, pitch, and what keeps you up?
Speed.
Speed.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got 2 dials. You've got the thing, altitude and pitch, and you've got speed. Okay, so because it's a small little plane, you know, it's just you. Yeah, if it crashes, well, only you die. Yeah. Now you're flying a jumbo jet. How many dials have you got?
Loads.
Loads. Okay, but you're not. You know, you're monitoring them. So, but you're only interested in them when they go wrong. So with all these measurements, you set them up, you monitor them, you improve them, you get them to a level, then they go into the background, and you only focus on them when they go wrong. But that doesn't mean you don't focus on another set of numbers. You should be then looking at another area of the business, right? What are we going to improve in that area? Once those are set up, then we go to another area. You might have to go back to the one that you did to start with. Okay, so we really, if we're looking to grow within our roles, certainly in management and directorship, we're really focusing on, if we're not measuring any numbers in our role, then we are not performing our role. Okay, because it's the numbers is how we play the game better. And if you look at that in any sport, it's all about the data now. Has anybody watched Moneyball, the film? Okay, if you haven't watched it, I'd grab it on one of the free players. It's a great film, but it just shows that the game of baseball, they took this sort of underperforming team to being top of the Premiership by actually just focusing on the numbers and seeing things that other people missed, not being emotional about it, just making decisions based on the numbers.
Yep.
So key focus is, every business needs a budget. Really get to love and understand your profit and loss on your balance sheet. Think about your limiting beliefs and watch the emotions. So when you talk about money and numbers, what's the emotion that's kicking in? And above all for you guys is start building your dashboards. And I would say build them one dial at a time. Don't go in and try and suddenly create a jumbo jet set of dashboards. Focus on one area. What is it we're going to improve? Get the team involved in it, get it up and running, move on to the next one.
Super.
Cool. Any questions?
No, I'm gonna have to dip out now, Kev, so thanks for that.
Okay. Cheers, Phil.
Speak to you soon. Nice to meet you all, guys.
Ta-da.
See you soon. Ta-da.
Good, Gresh.
It's all making relative sense.
Okay. I say we covered a lot of ground here, so I mean it's to me, this one's more about of awareness,
Yeah.
you know, and then when you start coming into the details, then that's the time to ask questions, you know, then I can get involved into the minutiae if you want to. Cool. Andy?
Hello. Yes. What did you ask? What we've learned? Sorry. I just
Yeah.
missed.
So what was any questions? What was the key
Oh,
thing
no.
for you out of this?
All of it really. I found it all really interesting. Profit and loss bit, that big table you brought up, that was quite good. No questions really. Just no.
Okay. Cool. Gary?
Yeah, quite a lot there. Got 3 pages of notes. I think out of the last page there, so I am my biggest problem because I can only work X amount of hours chargeable per 4 days on site. Obviously 1 day admin, so that's the 80-20 for now. Every time I see and hear this, I want to cry because I know I need to get an employee soon rather than later, so I can start making more money, because I'm sort of at that ceiling right now. But I think I didn't see myself as a KPI. And I think that's kind of a good turn of mentality there, to see myself in a KPI is like, what's my rate per whatever, what is my limiting resources, me, and figure out like how much I am per hour, per day, per week. I have got something like that because I did that labor budget thing, and I showed you maybe a month or 2 ago how much I can, like what my top value is of what I could potentially make from my work. And I need to revisit that and sort of change it, tweak it, make it relevant to where I'm at right now. And then I'll know exactly like what my minimum turnover is for, like my minimum turnover per day or week, so that I hit my targets. I need to make sure and just sort of get more laser specific, and also taking the emotions out of this, just all of it, business, rip emotions out, because I've been very emotionally attached to everything I do, and I try to make friends out of clients, which I've recently realized you don't do that, because clients are clients, friends are friends. Is definitely keep them separate, because it looks unprofessional otherwise. But yeah, that emotional, like keeping your emotions out and keep just straight to the numbers with like the budgets and the costs and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's good.
Good stuff. Okay, been a pleasure, and hopefully we'll see you again another one soon. Take care.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot,
Thank you,
Kevin.
Kevin.
Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.